What if the next time you reached into your pocket, opened an old coin jar, or looked through a forgotten collection, you discovered a single quarter that collectors have been chasing for years? Not because it's made of gold, not because it's ancient, but because of a tiny detail that millions of people overlook every single day. Welcome back to Minted Million Coins, where ordinary pocket change can sometimes become one of the most exciting discoveries in the world of coin collecting. Today's countdown features 6 Washington quarters that have captured the attention of collectors across America. Some examples have sold for astonishing amounts when they met the right combination of rarity, exceptional preservation, certification, and collector demand. But here's the twist. The most valuable coin in today's countdown isn't necessarily the oldest. In fact, one of these quarters looks so ordinary that many people have unknowingly spent similar coins without ever taking a second look. That's exactly why you need to stay until the very end, because each coin becomes more exciting than the last. And our number 1 coin has a story that surprises even experienced collectors. Before we begin, subscribe to Minted Million Coins and turn on notifications, because we bring you fresh rare coin discoveries, collector stories, and hidden treasures almost every day. Now, take a close look at your own quarters, because today's first coin may already be sitting much closer than you think. At first glance, the 1973 D Washington quarter appears to be just another everyday coin. Thousands of people have handled one without giving it a second thought. Cashiers, shoppers, vending machines, and coin jars have all seen this date countless times. Yet within the collecting community, this coin has earned a reputation that continues to spark curiosity whenever an unusually well-preserved example appears. So what makes this quarter so fascinating? To answer that question, we have to travel back to 1973. America was experiencing a period of economic uncertainty. Inflation was becoming a major concern. Daily life was changing rapidly. And the United States Mint continued producing Washington quarters for circulation. The Denver Mint placed its familiar D mint mark on millions of coins, each carrying the classic portrait of George Washington on the obverse and the proud eagle on the reverse. Like the quarters produced before it, the 1973 D was struck from a copper core, covered by outer layers of copper nickel, giving it durability for everyday commerce while maintaining the familiar silver-colored appearance Americans recognized. Because these coins entered heavy circulation almost immediately, many picked up scratches, rim nicks, worn high points, and countless contact marks during years of use. Finding an attractive survivor decades later is far more exciting than many people realize. Collectors carefully inspect every detail. They study Washington's hair above the ear. They examine the sharpness of the lettering. They inspect the eagle's feathers. They look for clean rims, original surfaces, and evidence that the coin escaped years of heavy circulation. Sometimes the smallest difference separates an ordinary collectible from one that commands serious attention. Another reason this date continues attracting interest is that modern collectors are assembling complete Washington quarter sets. Every date and mint mark matters. When demand from dedicated collectors meets a limited supply of attractive surviving examples, competition naturally increases. Professional grading also plays a tremendous role. 2 coins sharing the exact same date can have dramatically different values depending on preservation, eye appeal, strike quality, originality, and authentication by respected grading services. That's why experienced collectors never judge a coin by its date alone. Now imagine discovering one while searching through inherited collections, estate boxes, old bankrolls, or decades-old jars filled with forgotten change. Moments like these are exactly what keep collectors searching year after year. After building all this anticipation, here's the exciting part. Some reported examples of the 1973 D Washington quarter, depending on certification, condition, and the specific sale, have reached around $48,000 in the marketplace. That figure represents exceptional examples rather than typical circulated coins, which is why authentication and professional grading are so important before drawing conclusions about any individual coin. Whether your own quarter is worth only face value or turns out to be something much more special, one thing remains true. Every collector's journey begins by taking a closer look. Don't rush to spend older quarters without examining them carefully. Compare mint marks, inspect the surfaces under good lighting, and if a coin appears unusually sharp or unusual, consider having it evaluated by a reputable grading service. Knowledge is one of the most valuable tools any collector can own. And believe it or not, our next Washington quarter has a story that surprised even longtime collectors. Its year is different, its background is fascinating, and the reported values associated with exceptional examples have captured attention across the hobby. Stay with me, because coin number 2 might completely change the way you look at the quarters already sitting in your own collection. Now, before you put your collection away, stop for just one moment. The next coin on our countdown is surrounded by one of the biggest turning points in American coin history. At first glance, it looks completely ordinary. Most people would never give it a second look. It doesn't sparkle with gold. It doesn't have a dramatic design change. Yet for collectors, the year 1965 immediately grabs attention. Why? Because 1965 marked the beginning of a brand new era for American coinage. Let's travel back to that historic year. During the early 1960s, silver prices were climbing rapidly. Americans were pulling silver coins out of circulation because the metal itself was becoming increasingly valuable. The U.S. Mint faced a serious coin shortage and something had to change. That change came in 1965. For the very first time, Washington quarters were no longer produced with the traditional 90% silver composition used from 1932 through 1964. Instead, the mint introduced a copper core sandwiched between layers of copper nickel. It was one of the most significant transitions in modern U.S. coin history. Millions of Americans handled these new quarters without realizing they were witnessing history. Today, collectors look back on 1965 as the beginning of a completely different generation of Washington quarters. Although millions were struck, finding examples with exceptional preservation, strong eye appeal, and minimal marks has become increasingly challenging after decades of circulation. Many coins were heavily used in everyday commerce, leaving only a limited number of high-quality survivors that truly stand out. Experienced collectors don't simply glance at the date. They slowly rotate the coin under bright light. They inspect Washington's portrait for crisp details. They examine every letter in Liberty and In God We Trust. They study the rim for sharpness and uniformity. They carefully check the reverse, making sure the eagle's feathers remain bold and well-defined. Every tiny detail matters. Even the luster the original mint shine can dramatically influence a coin's desirability. A quarter that has retained its natural surfaces over decades often attracts much more interest than one that has been cleaned or damaged. Another fascinating reason collectors love the 1965 Washington quarter is its historical significance. It represents the first year of the clad composition, making it an essential piece for anyone building a complete Washington quarter collection. Some collectors spend years upgrading their collections, searching for cleaner, sharper, and more attractive examples. Auction competition can become intense whenever exceptionally preserved pieces appear, especially those authenticated by respected grading services. That excitement is what keeps the hobby alive. Imagine opening an old family coin album passed down through generations. Hidden between ordinary-looking quarters sits a bright 1965 example that has barely seen circulation. To most people, it's just another quarter. To a knowledgeable collector, it could be the discovery of a lifetime. This is exactly why experienced collectors never ignore coins simply because they appear common. History has repeatedly shown that condition can transform an ordinary-looking coin into an extraordinary collectible. Now comes the moment you've been waiting for. Some exceptional 1965 Washington quarters, depending on certification, grade, originality, and the specific auction in which they were offered, have been reported selling for around $32,000. These remarkable prices apply to outstanding collectible examples rather than typical circulated coins, highlighting why professional authentication and grading are so important. If you own a 1965 Washington quarter, Don't rush to assume its value or dismiss it. Examine it carefully under good lighting. Avoid cleaning it, as cleaning can reduce collector appeal. If it appears unusually well preserved or has distinctive characteristics, consider having it evaluated by a reputable grading service. One careful inspection today could reveal a coin with far more collector interest than you ever expected. But don't go anywhere, because the next coin in our countdown is even more intriguing. The 1968 D Washington quarter has become a favorite among many collectors, and the story behind its growing attention is something you won't want to miss. If you think you've already seen the most exciting coin in today's countdown, don't be so sure, because the next Washington quarter has quietly built one of the most fascinating reputations among modern U.S. coin collectors. To the average person, it's just another quarter from the late 1960s. It may have passed through grocery stores, gas stations, banks, and countless pockets without attracting a second glance. But to experienced collectors, the 1968 D Washington quarter tells a completely different story. The moment they spot that tiny D mint mark, their curiosity immediately begins. They know this is a coin worth slowing down for. Let's step back to 1968. America was going through a remarkable period of change. The nation was experiencing historic events, and the United States Mint was continuing to produce the new copper nickel-clad Washington quarters introduced just a few years earlier. The Denver Mint struck millions of 1968 D quarters for circulation, and most entered everyday commerce almost immediately. Years of spending, banking, vending machines, and cash registers left many of those coins worn, scratched, and damaged. As time passed, truly attractive survivors became much harder to find. That is where the excitement begins. Collectors don't judge this coin by its age alone. Instead, they focus on preservation, originality, eye appeal, and the sharpness of every design element. Take a close look at George Washington's portrait. Is the hair above the ear still crisp? Are the facial details strong? Does the lettering remain bold and complete? Then turn the coin over and examine the eagle. Sharp feather detail, clean lettering, and a well-defined rim all contribute to the coin's overall desirability. Even the coin's original mint luster plays an important role. A quarter that still displays bright, natural surfaces after decades is far more appealing than one that has been cleaned or heavily worn. Experienced collectors know that originality is often just as important as rarity. Another reason the 1968 D Washington quarter attracts attention is that it represents an important era in modern American coinage. Collectors assembling complete Washington quarter sets actively search for strong examples from every date and mint mark. When an exceptionally preserved 1968 D appears on the market, especially one certified by a respected grading service, competition among collectors can become surprisingly intense. Imagine searching through a forgotten family collection. You pull out an old envelope labeled simply quarters. Most of the coins appear ordinary. Then one bright 1968 D catches your eye. It has unusually clean surfaces, sharp details, and hardly any visible wear. Could it just be another common quarter? Or could it be the kind of coin that serious collectors hope to discover? That mystery is exactly what makes coin collecting so exciting. Every coin deserves a careful look before anyone decides what it might be worth. Now comes the moment everyone has been waiting for. Some outstanding examples of the 1968 D Washington quarter, depending on certification, grade, originality, and auction demand, have reportedly realized around $58,000. Those figures apply to exceptional collectible specimens rather than ordinary circulated coins, which is why professional authentication and grading are essential when evaluating any coin. A discovery like that reminds collectors why patience, knowledge, and careful examination are so valuable. Sometimes the biggest surprises aren't hidden in pirate treasure chests, they're found in ordinary collections that no one has examined closely for years. If you own a 1968 D Washington quarter, resist the temptation to clean it. Cleaning can reduce collector appeal and may lower its value. Instead, examine it under good lighting. Compare its details carefully, and if it appears unusually well preserved, consider having it evaluated by a reputable grading service. And believe me, the countdown is only getting more exciting, because the next coin has captured enormous attention among collectors and has become one of the most talked about modern Washington quarters in exceptional condition. The 1979 D Washington quarter is up next, and its story might be the biggest surprise of today's entire video. Stay right here on Minted Million Coins, because our rare coin discoveries keep getting better. And we bring you fresh updates from the world of coin collecting almost every day. Results represent outstanding collector quality specimens rather than ordinary circulated coins, making professional grading and authentication an essential step before estimating any coin's potential value. Stories like these remind us that remarkable discoveries don't always come from buried treasure. They can begin with careful observation, patience, and knowledge. If you have a 1979 D Washington quarter tucked away in an old collection, resist the urge to clean it. Preserve its original surfaces, inspect it under proper lighting, and if it appears unusually well preserved, consider having it evaluated by a reputable grading service. Now take a deep breath, because our countdown isn't over yet. The next coin may appear even more ordinary than this one, but its story has captured the attention of collectors across the hobby. The 1967 Washington quarter is next, and you won't want to miss the final surprise waiting at the end of today's countdown. We've finally reached the final coin in today's countdown, but don't make the mistake of thinking the last coin is the least exciting. In fact, this is the kind of quarter that countless Americans have held in their hands without ever realizing it could attract serious collector attention under the right circumstances. It doesn't scream rare. It doesn't look dramatically different from other Washington quarters. Yet, for knowledgeable collectors, the 1967 Washington quarter represents another fascinating chapter in modern U.S. coin history. Let's go back to 1967. The United States Mint was still working through the coin shortage that had affected the nation during the mid-1960s. To discourage people from hoarding coins, quarters produced during this period did not carry mint marks, regardless of where they were struck. That means when you examine a genuine 1967 Washington quarter, you won't find a D or an S on the obverse. That single historical fact immediately makes 1967 an interesting date for collectors. Like other Washington quarters of the era, it was struck using a copper core bonded to outer layers of copper nickel. It was designed for durability, built to survive years of circulation, and millions entered everyday commerce almost immediately. Unfortunately, that heavy circulation came with a cost. Over the decades, many 1967 quarters picked up scratches, worn details, dull surfaces, rim damage, and countless contact marks from years of use. Finding examples that still display outstanding eye appeal, crisp details, and original mint luster has become increasingly challenging. That's exactly why experienced collectors slow down when they encounter one in unusually nice condition. They don't just look at the date, they inspect Washington's portrait under bright light. They examine the lettering for sharpness. They study the edges for signs of damage. They carefully evaluate the reverse design, checking whether the eagle's feathers remain crisp and whether the coin still retains its original surfaces. To someone unfamiliar with coin collecting, those details may seem insignificant. To a seasoned collector, they can make all the difference. The 1967 Washington quarter also holds an important place in complete Washington quarter collections. Collectors striving to assemble every year in variety often search for attractive examples that combine originality, strong eye appeal, and professional certification. Whenever one of these exceptional coins appears at auction, it naturally attracts attention from collectors hoping to strengthen their collections. Now imagine this scene. You're helping a family member clean out an old house. Inside a forgotten desk drawer sits a small metal tin filled with loose quarters collected decades ago. Most appear ordinary. Then, one coin immediately stands out. Its surfaces are unusually bright. The details remain remarkably sharp. It has obviously been preserved far better than the others. At that moment, curiosity takes over. Could this simply be an old quarter? Or could it be the hidden highlight of the entire collection? Those discoveries are what inspire collectors to keep searching year after year. Every old coin has a story, and sometimes that story becomes far more exciting than anyone expected. Now it's time for today's final value reveal. Some outstanding examples of the 1967 Washington quarter, depending on certification, preservation, originality, and the auction where they were offered, have reportedly sold for around $18,000. These impressive prices apply to exceptional collector-grade examples rather than ordinary circulated coins, demonstrating how dramatically condition can influence value. If you own a 1967 Washington quarter, don't clean it or attempt to polish it. Preserving its original condition is one of the best ways to maintain collector appeal. Examine it carefully under proper lighting, compare it with reliable references, and if it appears unusually well preserved, consider having it authenticated and graded by a respected professional service. And with that, we've reached the end of today's incredible countdown. Who would have imagined that seemingly ordinary Washington quarters could generate so much excitement among collectors? The biggest lesson from today's video is simple. Never underestimate the coins already sitting in your pocket, your coin jar, an inherited collection, or an old family safe. Sometimes the most fascinating discoveries begin with the coins people overlook every single day. If you enjoyed this journey into the world of rare Washington quarters, make sure to subscribe to Minted Million Coins. Turn on the notification bell and join us for fresh rare coin stories, collector insights, market highlights, and treasure hunting adventures almost every day. Now tell us in the comments, which Washington quarter surprised you the most? And have you ever found an interesting coin in your own collection? Thank you for watching Minted Million Coins. Until next time, keep checking your change, keep learning, and remember, you never know when an ordinary-looking coin could become the most exciting discovery in your collection.